Hi, very good evening to everyone. It's been a while since the last time we've heard you, or rather, you guys heard us in on the DeFi Singapore space on YouTube. Thank you for joining us. Without further ado, we just want to welcome my guests for tonight, Mr. Steve Good and Adele. Welcome, everyone. Yeah. So we're gonna keep it short. Yeah, we're gonna keep it short. Without further ado, because I think everyone's busy with with the prices of crypto going crazy, and we have world politics happening today as we speak, right? We can share some thoughts on that. And Adele's been busy doing her filming, and she's also setting up her own artist shop soon, and things like that. So we've got quite a number of things on our plates. But we thought we want to catch up with our audience, for this year itself. We've been on the back burner, I think, 4 weeks now since the last time we spoke to each other. Yeah, it's been quite a bumpy ride for 4 weeks actually, per se. Interestingly enough. So, Steve, you want to brief us, or rather catch up with us, in terms of what you've been doing?
Yeah, well, Happy New Year to everybody. It's nice to see you guys. It's been a while since we've all caught up. For me, it was pretty quiet over the Christmas and New Year period. Just kind of low key, stayed relaxed. Traded a little bit, which wasn't so bad. Did okay, better than normal. I don't know why, maybe because I was just chilling out. But I've been keeping track of some of the NFT projects, like the gaming projects, and some of them are doing pretty well, which is pretty cool. Like
since we last spoke,
Sand and CFI, yeah. So that's kind of interesting. So I'm kind of interested in that space a bit. And then there's an interesting DeFi project I've stumbled upon called Wise, which
I think I heard of that somewhere. Someone was talking about it. Yeah.
I got into it over the Christmas time, and just before it all started getting really crazy. But what's interesting about it, which is with very little marketing or hype, they seem to be like number 5 on liquidity providers in Uniswap, and I'm trying to figure out how they've managed to get so much liquidity with so little marketing. It just seems to be a US team that doesn't own the coin, and I'm just like, it's kind of like our stick it to the man sort of conversation. It's another one of these, how have they gotten where they got to? And it's interesting to sort of step back and analyze it kind of after the fact. So yeah, that's what I've been kind of up to in the crypto space. That plus working on a few projects quietly and trying to move the needle on them, which is quite fun.
Yeah, cool. Adele, what have you been doing as well? I know you've been acquiring art and then going around and getting people to talk about their artworks and things like that. You want to?
Yeah, I mean, right after I never quite got over the Stickman realization that Stickman was worth. And you know what? At that point, I think Ether. How much is that now? At that point, Ether was $400.
That's right. Now, if it was sold, it would have made a profit. And if
about $3,600 USD now, roughly, maybe a bit more.
Yeah, probably 3 times. Yeah.
So yeah, I never quite got over that. So been looking into doing not just acquiring art, but also digital art courses. I was never into digital art. I prefer getting my hands on, but I'm like now I see a good case for it. And then of course just being, I'm like so sick of like people talking about Bitcoin prices now. My neighbor's like, oh, the Bitcoin. My dad's calling me. The day that my dad called me, actually, he called me on sleeping. He called me and he's like, oh, Bitcoin. I heard it on the news. It's 40,000 now. My dad is dropping his job.
Yeah, it's funny how everybody's talking about Bitcoin now. So my co-author and I, who used to run a YouTube channel for a couple of years and then just got focused on writing the book and put the channel on hold for a while, have now started doing weekly sort of how to get started in Bitcoin, or is it too late to buy Bitcoin style discussions that are live discussions on Clubhouse, which is a newish app.
I heard of Clubhouse, man.
I can send you guys invites if you want to get in there if you have Apple phones.
Well, it's only Apple users, right?
Right, exclusive for them. It's pretty fun. I mean, I get notifications all the time about apps that are or chats that are running, but people like us were busy, so we don't have time to hop in and listen to every call going on. But
Yeah.
I do occasionally jump in and listen. But it's actually quite fun. So Yuri Cataldo and I, he's my co-author and co-host. We started to do one on just this past Monday, just as an experiment, and we ended up with about 15 or 16 people turning up, and we were just like this kind of a call. We were just chatting about Bitcoin and the market and the prices and how it works and security issues and all sorts of stuff. And then we opened it up to people to ask us questions toward the end, and it was great because there were just tons of people that lining up for questions.
Oh, and, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and we just let them in one by one. They could ask their questions. We'd had a one-on-one dialogue with them or a two-on-one dialogue with them, and then we moved on.
That's interesting.
That it was just an experiment to see what kind of interest there is. And it's interesting. There seems to be a lot of interest from retailers now to get into Bitcoin, which we haven't seen for quite a while. So it's nice to see that. So
the last time was about 3 years ago when we had that conversation. So
2017, 2018-ish, first couple of months anyway.
Yeah. And in the words of Jefford, if your taxi driver is asking you about Bitcoin, it's time for you to sell. So Adele, when your father's asking you about Bitcoin, that's probably the best time for you to actually exit and re-entry the market. Actually, the market is good for it. Yeah, actually, the market is quite good for us to come in relatively, isn't it? It's like 34,500 now.
34.
Yeah.
What happened to 27?
It's still in play.
Yeah, I guess
we had a rising wedge that was playing out on a 1 hour for quite a while. It was going sideways, but it's in a downward trend.
Right.
And an upward wedge usually leads to a downward sell-off further down, and that's exactly what happened last night. We broke through the wedge and we dropped. So, I would have thought that given the previous 30,000 number that we've hit, that's a very likely target. And if we wanted to have a really good double bottom, then 27.7 roughly, 27.8, 27.6, something like that would be the awesome bottom. And I bet there'd be a ridiculous amount of support coming in if it hit that level.
For sure,
it'd probably be insane.
So that's what my neighbor thinks. He thinks it'll hit 50, and then it will plummet. That's when he'll sell, and then
I think he's backwards. It's more like it's going to go to 27, and then it's going to go to 60 or 75. So if he exits at 50, he's probably making a mistake personally, because I don't see that level of. I don't see a reason for it to sell off at 50. It's the same thing people said about the Dow Jones. When it hits and breaks 20, it'll dump. When it hits 21, it'll dump. When it hits 22, it'll dump. When it hits 25, it'll dump. It's at almost 31 right now. so I use the Dow Jones as a good indicator of all the negative sentiment that we saw about what will happen on the equity market in the U.S. Based on an index of a small number of companies. But needless to say, but when it hits the 20, I mean, then what happens? And I saw this when it broke the high of 16, whatever it was, and it went to 17, and then 18, and then 19. It was like, are we going to hit 20? But then, of course, there was equally numbers of people saying when it hits 20, it'll dump, and it didn't. So I think 50 is the psychological turning point that says we can go to 100, not the other way around.
Which is what happened during the 20,000 breakthrough, basically. After that, we skyrocketed. So I guess
that's kind of how I see it, because there's sort of patterns, and I don't think we need to go from 20, or sorry, from 25 to 50 doesn't mean from 50 doesn't have to go straight to 100. It could certainly go sideways for a bit and then do so. But the fact is, it may look parabolic because the supply of coins is very limited compared to the number of buyers. So it could go parabolic for a very long time. But arguably, the Dow Jones looks like it's somewhat parabolic as well, but no one says it.
No, I guess that's
on the tear for the last 2 years.
Yeah, I guess that's only what's happening now, right? Today itself is Biden's inauguration, isn't it? So everything's still very dicey at this point in time. So, but
they've got more military than they have attendees. for the most popular president in America, and there's no one coming.
Yeah, it's just so funny, man.
Lots of military there to protect.
So you think the 2028, 2770, it's going to happen within the next 24 hours?
The 27K?
Inauguration thing. That's what we're talking about.
There's every possibility that Dunny's not here to defend this, but he would probably say this and probably agree with me because he plays on the fundamentals and I play on the technicals.
Yeah.
So fundamentally, he would be the guy that says, I'm looking for some sort of news that would drive the price one way or the other. And any news that looks even remotely like it would,
cause the price,
even if it's good news,
Yep.
could be a reason to dump Bitcoin and create liquidation to create opportunities for then people to enter and lower. And if there was bad news, then it would dump because there's bad news. So because we're in a bearish trend in a bull market, then anything that's going to give people an excuse to just dump and then buy and pump it back up would certainly take advantage of that.
For sure.
So that's what I think Dunny would probably say roughly. And I would tend to agree with that because that's why I'm saying it, because that's pretty much what I think would happen.
He is looking for the event. I just spoke to him last night. He's still waiting for the event. He's on the sites for today only, basically, just to see what Biden is going to move. The reaction calls is just going to come maybe tomorrow.
Well, Janet Yellen, who's going to be the Treasury Secretary, has already said that she's targeting Bitcoin for frauds and Ponzi schemes and all the rest. So they're going to just continue to clamp down on Bitcoin in the US. And she said it yesterday. So that's already come out as news. And anything else they try to pass is only going to lead to Americans being blocked out of a technology play. And financial play. So they're not going to do anything to help create financial freedom. In fact, they're going to do the opposite because what Bitcoin often represents for people is financial freedom. If we take that away, we create financial slavery, which is what you pretty much have by having mortgages and loans and being dependent on having sometimes two jobs to get by, to pay off all these things so that you can actually have a house. It's not the way things should be, but it's certainly what the U.S. has been historically trying to do, is to remain in control financially by crippling people, by creating it a harder and harder, economic environment. And maybe it's not intentional, but that's what's happened. And I feel like Bitcoin creates the opposite model, which would mean that the banks don't make as much money. So who better to protect the banks making their money than the ex-head of the Federal Reserve?
For sure.
So let's just call a spade, as we say in England. A liar, a liar.
We call it as it is. We call it as it is.
So whatever it is what it is. But
I wanted to share the screen on the chart because you as a trader, Steve, what are your thoughts? Because as we can see here, I'm not using the best charts, obviously. I mean, TradingView is the best.
Well, just to change the time frame from max and change it to. Oh, so you've got it. Let me see if there's a way to do it so it's on 4 hour instead of on.
No. Well, I have to go on TradingView if you want to do that. But that
chart's not going to give you any information.
The only reason is I'm seeing this from a longer perspective. Bitcoin on a longer play. We talk about this area when it hit 20,000 just before we went on our hiatus, and after this it just kept going upwards, and this is unseen in terms of the levels. There's never been there's no historical data after this ever such.
No, but
what do you rely on?
There won't be when you see something that's new and it's getting adoption. You could argue the same thing about the Facebook growth curve as well,
right?
And I'd have to, I would have to pull something out, excuse me, that shows this, because I've seen some graphs that were done by Tom Lee at Fundstrat, and I have the data somewhere because he shared the slides with me. But basically, what he shows you is that the growth curve of Facebook follows exactly the same kind of a pattern. That it's like you slowly get a number of users coming in. And then it starts to rise, and then you get momentum, and all of a sudden it just goes up because the number of people joining is just a multiplier of people.
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
And there's a when you get certain levels of momentum, every startup experiences the same thing. They go from 1 to 10 to 20 to 100 to 1,000 to 10,000 to 100,000 users, and that 10x multiplier is amazing because if one person tells 10 friends, it's very quickly accelerating in an upward parabolic pattern until it reaches a plateau and then levels out and then starts to kind of zip along up and down. So you could argue the same exact things happening with Bitcoin. If Bitcoin were a product or a platform, then there has to be a parabolic rise as one person tells 10 and 10 tells 10 and 10 tells 10. You get an automatic multiplier of buyers. Of course, there's an inverse relationship between the price and the number of users and between the inverse relationship between the price and number of users. And I say that because as the price rises higher, people will only be able to afford to buy less Bitcoin. So at some point, it would kind of smooth out. But as long as there's generally volume and demand from a population of 5+ billion people, that's an awful lot of people, even if they're all buying 0.00001 at the same time.
Yep.
I mean, there's a lot of zeros in there.
We probably have to change our mindset.
What's that, Adele?
Why do you think it will eventually smooth out? Because supposedly, right, Dunstan saying it will go up to 1 million. He's waiting for Bitcoins to be 1 million.
Well, that's not going to happen so soon.
Yeah, easily. I mean, because we haven't even reached that kind of like 10% threshold of the world yet. We're not even close.
Right.
So, if you look at the price targets from Tim Draper, that he just increased his price target. It used to be 250K.
Yeah.
And when it was someplace between 30 and 35,000, he said 10x. So he's now revised his price target to someplace between 3 and 350 over the next 18 months. That's a huge increase, and that's only like the first step. If you then look at Plan B on Twitter and his stock to flow model, I think it's called. He has 4-year cycles of price rises going to 100K, million, and then I think it's 10 million or something like that. So, so to get to 1 million, first we go to 100K, and then 4 years from that, I think roughly 4 years from that in his model, you go to 100 to 10 to a million, and then another 4 years out, I think it is, if that's correct, if it's correct on the number of years, then we're at 10 million or something like that. Or his price target's 100 million. So so we just got to hang in there for a really long haul, and people will be like, "How did you hang through all these crazy times?" Like, well, it wasn't that hard. It was just a process, really.
Well, that's the difficult part, isn't it? I mean, we are so used to buying Bitcoins at 0.1, and now it's getting more difficult to buy 0.1 worth of Bitcoins. Basically, I mean, Adele, you went through it. I mean, you've gotten when you were buying stuff, back then, Bitcoins. 0.1 was still within the affordable range for you to do dollar cost averaging. Right now, I think we have to probably rethink our strategy in terms of probably have to go into 0.01 Bitcoin because of the increment.
Right. So listen, you're talking 0.01, which would be like, in dollar terms, it would be like a penny to a dollar, and we're talking like that now. So that's like $300 for some Bitcoin. And
4 years later, it will be
4 years from now, people are not going to be buying that. They're going to be buying
0.001. Yeah, that's right.
0.001 or 0.0001, and being happy they have that much. And of course, anybody who in my family whom I've given as Bitcoin as gifts to are going to be so happy if it reaches those heights, because
sure,
I'm creating independent wealth within the family, because it's important that they all have a little bit too.
So I've had the privilege of getting during the holiday period, gathering with old friends of mine. So I remember when I first started off, I happily gave away my Bitcoins. I mean, damn. So 2 of my friends actually got $10 worth of Bitcoins in 2016, 2017. And then I told them, hey, why don't you open up your wallet now and just for the fun of it, just take a look at it, basically. And it was it was $360, man. It was no joke. It was like, dude, do you know how much you just made for that? And interestingly enough, one of them started to buy Bitcoins for his children on a yearly basis. So on the Chinese New Year, when they get their rate packets, he takes the money and he buys Bitcoin. He says he's not going to spend his own money to buy Bitcoin, obviously, but he took all their rate packets and they just bought, Bitcoins back then, maybe 1-2 years ago. And he's quite he's building quite up nicely, having a nest egg for his children. Cool. Preparing them for university. I think that's another 10 years to 12 years from now. And he says that's the college fund that he's going to get. I mean, it increases like exponentially, right? So it's living proof by itself. So this is what's so amazing, right? And I think from a mind perspective, I'm trying to unlearn that 0.1 because I went through a phase of 1 BTC, which was $300. I go through a 0.1, which is at $300. Right now, I have to change my mindset to 0.01 BTC at this point of time, which don't make sense to me at this point of time.
Yeah, I always assumed that 0.1 was $1,000, right? Like in my head, it was an easy calculation of 0.1 is to 10,000 is 1,000, and now it's $3,500. It's like, holy crap.
Yeah. Exactly, man. Yeah. So it's a paradigm.
And the worst thing when you're trading, when you're trading and you're not looking at the dollar value because you're looking at the Bitcoin amount, and then you look at it, you're like, holy crap. I mean, I know traders that are like, holy crap, I was just trading 50 grand. And I didn't mean to trade 50 grand because it's only meant to be like, a little bit of Bitcoin. But if I look at the dollar conversion, it just messes the brain up because you're trading on such small amounts of Bitcoin, just trying to grow your Bitcoin a little bit. And some of the guys I was talking to were like, it's like, you don't look at the dollar amount when you're trading because it'll mess you up and you'll be like, oh my God, I just lost 50 grand or I just made 100 grand. It's like, you didn't really, because the value is the value it will be when you actually exit out and put it to dollars. Or if you hold it, it'll be worth significantly more or less, whatever. So it does really mess with the head if you look at the two at the same time.
So Adele, you need to change your mindset because I think you're still waiting for the 27,000 to come in and things like that. But the value of BTC is no longer to be the same as 1 BTC basically. So have that as a learning lesson. Trying to keep that from in every time when you want to make a trade per se. And I think this is why dollar cost averaging is very effective on Bitcoin, for the very reason of what we just spoke about, right? So every year it just goes up in value, or every 4 years at least. Danny was telling me it's no longer the 4-year cycle. I couldn't get my mind wrapped about it, and I kind of needed him to reset my mind on with that aspect again.
And is that because
I hope you can join us the next round.
Is that because the markets have moved to a more adoption, or something else?
Yeah, it could be. Because I was primarily I was just doing historical data of the past 12 years, right? So the first 4 years obviously is just very dull. There's not much of price movement. But the last 8 years, I've been blessed to at least see the two halvings in my lifetime. And that's when I started to say there's something very different about Bitcoin. So and I kind of took that as a benchmark, and I had to be reset in my thinking because Danny was saying, having spending supper with him yesterday till 3 a.m. in the morning. So you guys saw my pictures anyway. So we were like, I was like half dead. My brain was like, Danny, can you just tell me, this 4 year cycles? They said, no, they just change everything. There's no, the halving is just an event that's going to be very, it's no longer going to be polarizing. That's what he said.
No, well, it can't be as much because it's harder to mine a block, and to reach the next threshold, the miners get half as many Bitcoin, but they make all their money on transaction fees. So it naturally flips and smooths from the miner's perspective. They're making their money. They're probably making more money from the transaction fees because of the price of Bitcoin than they did from the actual Bitcoin if they sold it off to run their businesses previously. So They're probably looking back going, oh my God, I sold like 500 Bitcoin to run my business from all the block rewards. And look at how much that would
help it. They can't help it because they have
They have
an
to run the
ongoing.
business.
They have to run the business.
I know.
And that's what happened, right? Is that when it recently dropped to 30?
Mm-hmm.
That was the miners, right? That go a bit.
Oh, not just the miners, Adele. There's more. But obviously, with MicroStrategy keep buying up all the excess Bitcoin in the market, that's when the price keeps going. It's either being supported or it's going up. So that's something that people are not used to seeing.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
that's just one of the way. I've had the same experience with Ether as well recently. I mean, when I was doing the NFT thingy, and what I did not realize was that in the back of my mind, it only took me, I think gas fees of 0.1 or 0.01 ETH, for transaction fees is minimal, right? Minuscule, because my mind was still set in that 400, 600 range, basically. But now Ether is like 1,200. My transaction fees were like $132. I was like, what? And I blindly just click again and making that same old mistake,
So one trick for you there is if you see the fees are really high, just wait until it gets to be later at night your time, because when there's a lot of activity in Asian daytime, the Ether fees go up. And if you wait until later at night when the Asian markets are more or less down, sleeping, quiet, you'll find that the Ether gas prices go down with it.
Good tip.
Yeah. So there are definitely, if you there's an article, I'll have to find it and we can post it in one of the future episodes. But there are people who have done analysis on the best time to buy Ether, or to spend or to send Ether. I mean, based on gas fees, and I'll check and see if I've got it to hand, because I've got a friend of mine.
You should try showing the moon chart again, man. And this time it's for Ether, and see whether there's a correlation to it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll let you guys about
Bitcoin. It could.
We should look at the Ether. I had never.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you guys about. I mean, because yesterday it broke, right? The 1,004, and I'm just
early,
like, what's going on? So, like, Steve, when you were saying that you trade, Leslie, I'm waiting for the 27 something 28 just to get back in the game, because I had so much more to play with. Well, not a lot, but then. So remember, I was out of the market for a while, guys, and then I remember the day that I bought back. It was around between 17 and 18. It was actually at Universal Studios, and I was in line, and I was like, my mobile was like the most important thing. I was like, I'm spending like lots of money right now while waiting in line to get on a ride, and I was picking up some Ether. Well, because you actually asked me to collect some Ether, right?
Yeah, a few of my friends actually made money from Ether, because I told them nearing the end of December, when Steve and Danny, we were like talking about buying, Ether, and So guys, this is the link that Steve has just shared with us. So you guys can just take a look at this. You probably Google it on Medium. So back to the topic of Ether, I think they've made some money actually, Adele. So. It's not about the calls that we make. It's actually the reactions that we take. For crypto, it's really very fast. It's almost instantaneous. When you receive news, you're probably actually too late to enter the market or enter into the game. Like Steve mentioned, immediately, when we have our own private calls with Danny or whoever it is, that we start talking about projects. We start talking about what's the interesting thing in the market, and the very night itself, when Steve got in, I think that, that's where he made some money off CFI. That was one of the few tips that we gave out.
It's doubled now.
Yeah, exactly. So
I just checked it today. I was like, oh my God, it doubled.
Yeah, so that's like, but on CFI, I think you can only get it on Uniswap, right? You can't get it off any DEX at the moment. Any
I can't remember. I think there's two places you can buy it, if I recall correctly.
So,
but Steve, you're still trading Ether against the Bitcoin, or Bitcoin against Ether.
If anything, I'm just moving Bitcoin to Ether, and then I'll move it back.
Yeah,
but
I'll share my screen for a minute if you guys want to see the moon charts.
Yay! That's
Now
always
that
the
Ether's
fun
going
part.
up, doesn't that, and like Ether shot up? Does that mess with your Bitcoin Ether trading game?
Of course it does. Yeah, of course it does. And if Ether goes up, altcoins follows as well. It's almost parallel in nature basically. But the thing is, Adele, we don't have a lot of time. Do take note of that. When what I mean by we don't have a lot of time means that when we say that this is the coins to look at, you probably would need to make a decision back then on the spot, say, okay, I'm just going to put maybe 10% off in the entire portfolio into this. The sure bet that we know for without a doubt, instead of just trading, is definitely the dollar cost averaging methodology that we have. So that's something that instead of spot trading and spot buying, you buy on a regular basis. You can't go wrong with that. Yeah, that's without doubt. Yep.
Interesting
Steve.
about Ether to dollar. I mean, if you just look at this bottom, and if you got in even 3 days later, and then it goes, it's just, to be honest, it's just like the moons are going up with it. It's like really hilarious. I mean, I can't say that the moons themselves are necessarily identifying opportunities every time, because this one here on the 9th of February, actually, 10th of January, 9th of Feb were both good. 9th of March or 10th of March was good. Even this one was arguably pretty good for April. This one in May was all right. It wasn't great, but it was okay. That was up a little bit. It went from 186 to 200, so that's still a gain. But the one in June was down, so that's one bad one. And then you look at July, and you could have held on and just kept on going into August and all the way up. Then you just get out right around the time of the we talked about that before. Enter in the full moon, exit at the new moon. And if you'd exited there, you would have just been exited the slaughter. Comes all the way down, and then you enter again back in, and you end up in the same little bit up, little tiny. Well, this one's a little tiny bit up, but they're mostly up. But what's interesting is I then wanted to see something else, which is what happens with Ether and Bitcoin, the relationship between them. And actually, it's all over the map. I mean, you could have, this is a big dump, could have gotten in with buying Ether buying Bitcoin to get Ether, and then exiting back to Bitcoin, and then it comes down, but here it didn't work at all. It just, actually it did, because if you got out before the new moon, and then it dumped, then you get your Bitcoin there, and use it to buy Ether and get up a little bit. But if you waited, you would have actually, probably lost on this particular November trade.
Sure. Yeah.
December, not better, would have been a loss, but check out January.
Yeah.
And in fact, in January, you probably would have missed out, because normally we say it's about 3, 4, 5, 6 days after the full moon.
Yeah.
And this is already, if you didn't get in right here on this big wick candle, which also hit the support line, which is interesting too, because now I'm using two things to combine them.
Yeah.
Because I have a support line that I've drawn out that goes way back. I'll show you. So, when you see it comes down below and double tests the line there, that's an entry. So that if I had looked at that and looked at the moon and I wasn't looking, then you can see that it just shot up, came back down, shot up again. And guess what? Here's your new moon right here.
Exactly.
I could have exited here, or I could have exited here. So now I should be actually flipping my Ether back to Bitcoin. I'm going to look for the next entry, and hopefully it comes back down, but it might not. It might just go sidelines or go up still, and then you find another moon to enter on. But I mean, I just added this moon chart for Ether because I hadn't looked at it before. So
what's the moon chart called again? It's on TradingView, isn't it?
Oh, it's called I just typed in MP for moon phases, and there's actually one called M for moon, and P for phases. MP.
Okay.
And that's what I type in onto TradingView, and I can show you it here.
So cool that TradingView actually has this.
Yeah, moon phases right here.
Yeah. Okay. This is so cool. I'm still amazed.
So we were talking about this green trend line. So This was after the bear market for Ether. This was the lowest point that it hit here, which was in September 2019. And I just drew out this green line. I haven't touched this green line in ages, but you can see that we kind of, we looked like we were trending at a lower point, but then we had this low here, and then these points here where it touched a dip below, but didn't actually stay below. So if you look at it like this is a pretty solid support line, which means that there's every reason for Ether at some point to come back down to, maybe not as low as the line, but it could easily come back to 0.03, which would be someplace around here. Because right now it's on a pump, but of course every pump follows with some sort of dump. So, and I'm talking about the interrelationship between Bitcoin and Ether.
Yeah.
So how much, right now it's 0.037. So if you want to get, we're saying this, but then we may just miss the boat on this too, right? If we don't enter soon enough. So, if you have Bitcoin and you're going to buy Ether, then you kind of want to have it around points. My target was like around 0.03, 0.033. What's that?
No, kind of one of the advertisements just went off. Sorry. Yeah, continue.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying that, you want to enter into Ether when Ether is cheap enough against Bitcoin. And right now, 0.03 to 0.04 is cheap when you consider that it could go double easily. It could triple because Ether has traded that high before. So why shouldn't it trade that high again? So
meaning you're going to buy Ether right now.
Well, yeah, I said it a few weeks ago, probably before when we did last show, we should probably buy it when it's someplace around the 0.03 level. Now it's at 0.037. So
yeah,
that's already a good rise.
Yeah.
I've not followed through on some of my own recommendations either.
Oh, tell me about it, man.
Yeah. Not enough.
Where do you guys see Ether itself going? Just Ether alone, now that we've broken a new high.
Well, if you consider that Ether at its peak was around 0.12 against Bitcoin, then you can extrapolate that based on the value of Bitcoin to work out what the price of Ether would be in dollar.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it'll go all the way up to 0.12, but I certainly think it could go up to, 0.09 rather than 0.03 or 0.04. So in dollar terms, we're half that right now. So it should be, when Bitcoin was at 20, Ether was around 12, 13, 1400. I don't remember the exact price. So we're at half the value of what Bitcoin or Ether should probably be right now. If we assume that they have a relationship that says that they should be roughly around, the same ratio, more or less. And Ether to me just seems massively undervalued. And I think that with Ether 2.0 and all of the cool things happening with sharding and future of Ether, there's most definitely going to be some sort of price movement sooner or later.
Yep.
Whether people hear us and say, okay, I'm going to do something about it or not is another matter.
Yeah. Well, the prediction that Danny has given, obviously, this is everyone's got to do their own due diligence. Okay?
For sure. That's the point. That's why I do the analysis.
Yeah. So that's why, even with the DeFi space itself, that's overwhelming, to at this point of time where if we are looking at the space, we actually have a lock-in value of $23 billion, that's actually on the DeFi space. The majority of this is in Ether itself. And if we compare Ether's market price, the market cap itself, it's 145 billion. Yeah, that only works out to how much? It's 23 divided by 4. It's only about 7% of the entire amount of Ether. That's really a fraction of what the potential of what Ether's price could be in the first place. So if DeFi space is just is going to go ballistic this year, and I think Danny himself is and Steve, we are all quite we have good vibes about it, right? So
yeah,
and so by end of this year, our price targets are actually for me it's $2,000 and $3,000. What I think Danny is actually aiming it for what, 5,000, 3,000 to 5,000, or even up to 8,000 for Ether.
Well,
So
let's
that's
just
kind of
use
price.
if we assume that even if Bitcoin to Ether is trading at 10% of the value, if Bitcoin were to go to 100,000, then why shouldn't
Mhm,
Ether be at 10,000
mhm.
at a minimum?
Yep.
And given that what Ether provides in the blockchain space has an entirely different value set than what
Mhm,
Bitcoin provides. Bitcoin provides a safe haven for investors the way that they would see gold or silver, or they would move from equities to bonds or to emerging markets. It's just another asset class to investors.
mhm.
But Ether is an entirely different kind of experience because of the fact that the way I describe it in my book, for example, is it's like an operating system,
Mhm.
because it provides you a decentralized series of functions that allow you to do things you wouldn't be able to do otherwise.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right? I mean, smart
Yep.
contracts, it's just a term and most people have no idea what that means, but the underlying concept is it's code, and you can code into that particular project and do things. And if you can do things, then it's got a different value proposition for the relationship between people, between companies, between individuals. It's crazy.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
that sort of an ecosystem could certainly, expand and grow because there's real value.
Yep. That's right.
It serves a
Yep.
real purpose. It adds real value. It creates immutable transactions.
Mhm,
And, not just I sent it and you received it, but actually based on terms, conditions, based on transactions, based on yield, you know, based on, events. And that's something that you won't find in Bitcoin at all.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. So yeah, I
So,
hope that answers your questions. For
The growth of
Ether.
Ether.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even if it's at $1,000, I think this is just the beginning. It's just coming up to a price where it's more palatable and it's more accepted in the market. In my opinion, I don't think unless there's a major event or a major cost for a huge dump, I don't think the price of Ether is going to be any lower than 800 or 700 plus. But I do think that it's just going to just hover around the 1,000 mark. And it's just going to keep going up from here to all the way up to the end of the year. Yeah. So on that note, I think when you mentioned when is the good time to come in, my strategy obviously is waiting for the Chinese New Year period, and Danny confirmed this with me as well, that the Chinese New Year period is when the Chinese traders are exiting, and they're just getting having some extra funds for the new year.
through that
And that's probably
every
when,
year.
and that's, yeah. So it's a cycle, market cycle that's not just in crypto itself. It's quite prevalent in the standard markets as well.
Is
Even
this
the
for
holiday
Ether and
season,
Bitcoin? Everything?
everything.
Yeah,
So
there's always a sell-off just before the
yeah,
Chinese New Year and then a
Chinese New
pump
Year
just
or the
after to
holidays.
some
Yeah,
degree.
yeah.
Um,
So just take
sometimes
note of the
significant,
market during
sometimes
that
not.
time. So if you're looking at the price for a more palatable price for you, Adele, to dollar cross down, I think that's the best time for you to start looking at the prices.
What
It
we have to
usually happens probably
consider,
1-2 weeks before Chinese New Year, so we are very close to the dates anyway. So
yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
what we have to consider though, of course, is that like all things, there's been changes because of the financial services institutions
Oh, for
buying,
sure.
and
Yep.
they may put enough money in that it would almost negate the Chinese New Year sell-off.
Yeah.
That's
So
entirely possible. We've never seen it before.
yep. So I'm constantly because they don't do that.
So it's inconsequential. It may be that the Chinese are selling it off. It drops the price down a little bit, and as it's being
And then
dropped down, then investors could
back
be
it.
gobbling it
Yeah.
up, and we wouldn't even see it go down itself because people have buy
Yeah.
orders and just take it as it comes down. And it might be little
Exactly.
blips, and we just can't
Yeah.
get in fast enough because we don't have orders in the same way.
Well,
So
Danny said the same thing as well. I think that's why he's saying this year's 4-year cycle is a bit different. So
it is
uh,
different. Definitely from the last
I'm
two.
really hoping that we will get some opportunistic timing that we can get in.
Yeah.
But looking at today's price, actually, at 34,000, is it 34? Sorry,
It's
34.
34.9 right now.
Yeah, I see. It just went up again. Every time when we do a show, it goes
Yeah, it
up
goes
by
up.
1,000.
Every
We
single time.
lose 1,000
500
points every
points,
time
man.
we talk. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. It seems like Wednesdays are like the time that most people like to come start their trading week.
Oh, so here's another one for you that you'll love this. That I noticed another pattern with Bitcoin. For people, and I don't know if this is holding true now, but I noticed it over the last 2 years or so, but I haven't looked for the last 6 months. But what I did notice is that, when people get their salaries, they're normally paid around the 25th.
Oh, right.
And if people are being paid in Bitcoin, then I noticed that around the 25th, there seems to be a pattern of the price dipping every single month on the 25th. And I don't know if it's because of salaries or something else, but I thought it was kind of interesting that it's always around the 25th that there seems to be a little dip.
But it shouldn't be causing so much of an impact to the price, isn't it?
No,
I mean,
but it's kind of like the moon thing. And I told Dunny about the moon thing. Well, you did, Adele, and then we confirmed it. And he's like, huh, some of my trading is based on the same time cycles. And I didn't mean to do that. It just happened that way. And I said, well,
Wow.
yeah. So there may be that there are certain time frames where things just happen, and maybe I don't know why. I don't know why the 25th or the 26th is roughly a time frame where you see the end of month, right? Because what happens when people get paid salaries end of month? They always have to sell. But is there that much being distributed end of month? Probably not.
Which is why, yeah, exactly.
So then I don't know why. I just know that it was because I had another project I was working on. We were paying everybody, and the CEO kept getting all panicked that the price always dropped because he was trying to pay people right on the 30th because he was being so damn cheap. He didn't want to pay people earlier. And I was like, dude, look at the price. If you would just sell on the 24th and pay everyone on the 24th, you'd get the best price possible to pay everybody. But you wait till the 30th and it's all down between the 25th and the 30th. And then you complain every single month. Why didn't I do it sooner? And then you don't do it sooner because you're too damn cheap that you don't want to give it away any sooner than you have to.
Well, don't pay in Bitcoins then.
Yeah, well.
I take Bitcoins. And then don't buy every single month to pay. People's salaries just going up.
He had a stash and he just didn't want to let it out of his hands. So he was just being as stingy as he possibly could. But then, of course, he always had a reason to complain because that was his nature. That was funny.
Yeah. But that's
the only reason I spotted the pattern, because I was like, why does it always happen every month to this poor guy that it always dumps right when he has to pay everybody? And if he'd paid 3 days earlier, he would have been better off, or 5 days earlier, he would have been better off. That's why I spotted the pattern.
So
Adele, you were saying something, and then you guys were cutting over each other. You were saying something about Chinese New Year being, being like, yeah, but like how you said Chinese New Year is not that far. It's actually 3 weeks away.
Yeah,
21 days.
Isn't it the 15th of Feb, or is it sooner?
12 this year.
12th of Feb. Okay, so it's about 3 weeks away. Yeah.
On the moon chart, when's the next moon? Actually, you should be able to tell in the next two weeks or so.
It's probably going to be around the 30th or 29th or something like that.
And then on the 12th, is it going to be a full moon? Yeah.
No,
so anyway,
new moon.
Yeah. So
the new moon is right.
Yeah, the new moon doesn't have any strong correlation to anything. It's just more like that's where you should get out and wait for the next one.
But the full moon is when it goes
up generally. Yeah, but normally it's a couple days after the full moon, but the problem is it's sometimes 1 day after and sometimes it's 5 days after. But I mean, theoretically, you could just get in at the full moon and wait, 2 to 5 days plus another 3 to 5. So that 3 to 5 days window is pretty consistent. It's just when the window starts and ends, which is variable. Need a bot for that.
Yeah, you need a bot for that. I think that's what on TradingView has already, basically. So that's why you're getting that information.
You know what? There's got to be a business for this. We could go and make ourselves a moon bot, and literally, people are going to get all excited, going Bitcoin moon, and we're talking about the moon bot that trains on the moon cycles, not because it's going to the moon.
No,
before Bitcoin broke 20, we said we'll do that, right? We'll say, we'll just buy $100 of Bitcoin and then we'll try this theory out. And then it broke 20 and everybody's heads just fried. So we didn't.
Yeah, because
now we were saying we'll buy $100 worth. We're talking completely different amounts. Right?
Well, if we had bought $100 worth back then at 20, we probably made $200 at this point in time.
It's doubled.
Yeah.
That was
but
not if you traded in and out of the cycle, you might have made more, you might have made less.
Yeah. So Adele, we've given you the tips that you asked for. Just bear that in mind. Chinese New Year, I think Steve's point earlier was quite on point. Because with MicroStrategy's big strong positioning of trying to buy every single Bitcoin available in the market. I'm not sure when they will stop. So I'm just crossing fingers they will not. They'll come to a stop and let the market correct itself. So that's the interesting thing. So So I guess this is probably where we are at. I'm just going to close off the session earlier today. We just want to gather. I wish everyone Happy New Year. And in 3 weeks' time we're going to have Chinese New Year. So next time around when you see us, maybe we'll during the Chinese New Year period, Adele, let's dress up a bit. Wear red in Chinese New Year. Yeah, and then Steve, if you want to join us in the festivities, you can join us as well for the Chinese New Year stuff. Unfortunately, you can't join us in Poland.
I'm all about red envelopes. Come on.
Oh, for sure.
I will give envelopes and I will receive envelopes. I'm very happy to provide Bitcoin wallet addresses for red envelopes. No problem.
That's a good business idea. I have been saying that for the last 3 years and no one wants to do it. So that's on the side note. See, we're giving out free ideas again. So anyway, thank you guys for joining us. Thank you both for ever so grateful for you guys for joining the show and spending 1 hour of your time with me on a Wednesday night.
You're worth more than an hour of time.
Really? Cheers to that. That's just more. So
cheers, man.
Yeah. All right, man. Good night, guys.
Just remember that.
Yeah. Home is where the heart is. Yeah.
That's right.
I can't wait for you to join us in Asia, man, Steve. So
man, I'll get up sooner or later. I'll be out there. Yeah. When there's a chance to fly or boat or whatever, swim.
Yeah.
Train.
I'm just thinking about how much Jason's Thor Ether thing is worth now. Okay, anyway.
Anyways. Yeah.
All right.
You guys can stay on. We'll just end off the session and then we'll probably have our own other conversations. All right. Cool. See you.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.